Well, for more on how the COVID-19 outbreak is affecting Southeast Asia, I'm joined live from Hong Kong by Tommy Wu, lead economist at Oxford Economics. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
So let's start with your take on the size and scope of the measures laid out in Singapore's budget, especially regarding the coronavirus.
Yes, so this year's budget will be equivalent to about 2.1% of Singapore's GDP, which is much larger than last year's budget deficit of 0.3% and also much larger than, say, back in 2003 during the SARS episode. And part of it has to do with an increased spending to combat the coronavirus outbreak, and also there are several packages that will support families by giving out cash handouts and also rebates, and also businesses, programs to support businesses, including corporate tax cuts and also special reliefs for businesses that are affected by the outbreak, especially the retail sector or hotels and other affected businesses.
So now let's look through the rest of Southeast Asia. Which other countries are most exposed to disruptions that come with the coronavirus?
So I would say that a direct impact would be through tourism. So especially countries or economies that have high linkage with China when it comes to tourism, such as Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, Hong Kong. They do get a lot of Chinese tourism coming in. And I would expect these economies to be affected the most, especially given that I would expect, say, in February, pretty much 90%, there will be a 90% drop in terms of Chinese outbound tourism to globally, and especially to these Asian countries.
So then, if you look at the coronavirus's impact on Southeast Asia as a whole and in the interconnected economies, what's at stake here?
So besides the tourism sector, there are also other sectors that will be affected because of the interlinkage, not just in tourism, but also in terms of supply chains, for instance. And with China, pretty much, the businesses or industrial production is very slow at the moment, and we're still waiting. A lot of businesses are still waiting to come back online gradually over the next coming few weeks. That means that it causes a lot of disruption, especially in electronics and also automobile supply chains, and that will affect probably more on Japan, Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong the most, and then also the other Southeast Asian economies, but maybe to a somewhat lesser extent.
Now, we know that individual companies have taken their own measures about whether to let people return to work, etc. Talk about the different measures that governments are taking to really take some of the pressure off of these industries that are affected the most.
Within China, a lot of policies are being rolled out nowadays with the governments now not just focusing on combating the virus, but also try to get the economy starting again. Now, in terms of businesses in other countries, for instance, in Korea, South Korea, we know that some companies such as Hyundai, they have to suspend production because they cannot get supplies out of China. But I would say that companies would try to get supplies from elsewhere as quickly as possible, given the supply chain disruptions.
So then how well positioned are neighboring countries and others to really offer some help to China where it is seeing disruption with the supply chain?
So, sorry, can you repeat that again?
Sure. How well positioned are some of these other countries that are in the supply chain to help China perhaps offset some of the disruption?
Actually, it's quite difficult because when it comes to, say, electronics or automobile, some of the crucial parts intermediate goods are being made in China. So for these, the supply chain disruption will be quite heavy for a lot of the Asian countries. Now, there is something that other industries may be actually helped by this virus. For instance, the businesses that are doing medical supplies. Those companies in Asia, maybe they could help to expand their exports to China.
All right, thank you so much for your insights. Thanks to Tommy Wu there, lead economist at Oxford Economics.